The Bleacher Report app is your destination for sports. Right now, the NBA's heating up, March Madness is here, and MLB is almost back. Every day there's a new headline, a new highlight, a new moment you've got to see for yourself. That's why I stay locked in with the Bleacher Report app. For me, it's about staying connected to my sports. I can follow the teams I care about, get real-time scores, breaking news, and highlights all in one place. Download the Bleacher Report app today so you never miss a moment.
Let's be completely honest. Are you happy with your job? The fact is, a huge number of people can't say yes to that. Too many of us are stuck in a job we've outgrown or one we never really wanted in the first place. But we stick it out and we give reasons like, what if the next move is worse? And I've put years into this place. And maybe the most common one, isn't everyone miserable at work? But there's a difference between reasons for staying and excuses for not leaving. It's time to get unstuck. It's time for Strawberry.me. They match you with a certified career coach who helps you get from where you are to where you want to be, either at your existing job or by helping you find a new one. Your coach helps clarify your goals, creates a plan, and keeps you accountable along the way. Go to strawberry.me/career and get 50% off your first coaching session. That's strawberry.me/career.
Hello, and welcome to the Psych Legal Pop podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham, I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist.
And today we are going to be talking about a documentary that's called Dancing for the Devil. And it just came out a few days ago on Netflix. And I really enjoyed it. I'm going to set this up and sort of explain what it's about. So a couple of years ago, started seeing these. It wasn't on TikTok, it was on Instagram. Because what is there's like a subtitle to this Dancing for the Devil. It's something about the TikTok.
Yeah, the
something.
TikTok, the 7M TikTok cult.
Okay. So they say TikTok, but they were on Instagram too. I discovered this on Instagram. Somehow in my algorithms, I started seeing these videos of young people dancing in Los Angeles, like in iconic spots, like on the Hollywood Walk of Fame or at the Grove or, just any kind of touristy spots in LA. Although sometimes they would just be dancing on a street, in a suburb or maybe like inside some sort of a theater or, like at the Griffith Observatory. Just all over the place. So it's based in Los Angeles. And so the dancing was kind of different. It was like they would take kind of older songs from the 70s or 80s or 90s but do modern day choreography. And they were dressed up. They had matching, there were women and men. They had matching outfits, matching suits, and it was very slick. It was very slickly produced. And these were really, really good dancers. And we find out later, a lot of them had been on So You Think You Can Dance or World of Dance and these dance competitions. Some of them were already, social media influencers, that type of thing. And they're very popular. I watched dozens and dozens of them. I love.
Little did you know they were in a cult the whole time.
I had no idea.
You were watching them. And
no idea. Although I would say maybe about a year or less ago, I remember hearing that these dancers were like all living together in a house and were basically, they didn't use the word cult, I don't think, but were being all managed by the same person who was kind of controlling their lives.
Yeah.
Which turned out to be true, but it was actually even more than that, than what this guy was doing. So, as a lot of cult leaders tend to do, they focus on people who are vulnerable. And these young people, they were vulnerable in the sense that, they were all very talented. They could become stars and they really wanted to become stars. And so they would do anything, because the volume of videos that they've shot, it's, hundreds, thousands probably I mean, that's what they're doing all day, every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they seem to be happy to be doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like this is their dream come true. So he preyed on those people. And when I say he, who I'm talking about is this man, Robert Shin, who turns out to be a cult leader, turns out to be the pastor at this church, the how do you pronounce it?
I thought it was Shekinah.
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 The Shekinah Church in Los Angeles. And he's Korean, and there are a lot of Korean church members, but it's a multicultural church. You know, cult leaders, they don't care like where you come from. They just want to recruit people.
Yeah.
So he's the one who's behind all this, and he had I can't remember if it was one son or two sons. There was a son, Isaiah. Is that his name? Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
he's the one who I think kind of went out, came up with these ideas, and went out and found these dancers and recruited them. And he's the one who did all the video production because they're very slick produced.
Because that's one of the things when I watch these videos, I'm like, I can't imagine how much time and effort and write the graphics. So I think this kid, Robert Shin's son, I think was someone who he was a videographer and was interested in this, and he kind of hooked up with them. And it was like, oh, well, come over to my house. My dad, was always around, and my dad's a pastor, and and that's how they all sort of started to meet Robert Shin.
Right. Yeah. And he was, here's the connect. Okay. So here's one group of people. So then they start adding in, and we see the stories of these other dancers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a lot of the film focuses on these two sisters, Melanie and Miranda, and they are from Michigan, and they're like influencers.
Mm-hmm.
You know? They have a pretty good following online, and, they do the kind of teenage young woman, like, type videos, hair, makeup, clothes.
Get ready with me.
Yeah.
And the videos and unpacking things and putting things together. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're both dancers. And they, I think it was Miranda who came to LA to be on So You Think You Can Dance.
Yeah. She came out to LA first.
And then she met, Isaiah Shin, or, the people around him. And actually there was this guy, James, who was friends with Isaiah. They called him B Dash, and he eventually became her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
So her sister came out here, and her sister Melanie was much more discerning, and she picked up right away on the fact that there was something wrong about these people pressuring her to go to this church, because as soon as like you said, as soon as you hook up with the Shin family, they start recruiting you into their church/cult. And Miranda just kind of fell for it, but Melanie didn't, which I think is interesting because, they come from the same family.
Yeah. But I think it's the influence of James. I think because Miranda was with James, she had him in her ear. And I think James, he kind of fell into, quote unquote, the cult at the same time. But I think it was like you're stronger together when there's two of you sort of feeding into it versus Melanie, who was like alone over on the other side, Right. So it was easy for her to just be like, I don't want to do this.
Right. So they start recruiting these dancers, primarily from these shows. And so Robert Shin, he's financially, he's got a million scams going. He's got a million different businesses and doing this and doing that. And we find out later is because he totally exploits people, has them work for him, takes all their money. So he creates this company called 7M Entertainment Company. And he starts to manage all of these dancers. And he pays, they move into this house, although they have to pay rent. And he starts producing all these videos with them and makes them all these promises. And they're just working all the time. And I'm sure whatever advertising they're getting from their social media, he's taking that, and they're doing appearances and they're booking commercials. This one guy, Aubrey Fisher, he was one of the more successful ones. He booked several commercials.
Well, as the manager, the manager was taking 20%. So Robert Shin, 7M, was taking 20%, which, I don't know if things have changed since I left Hollywood. Technically, managers usually take somewhere between 10 to 15. So 20 is a little high.
This guy is not a real manager.
Yeah, I know that. I'm just saying it's a touch high, but it's not outrageous, right? But he's not only their manager, he's the church leader. So there was 10, 10, 10. 10% to tithe, 10% for God, and 10%. There was another
10% for man of God, who is Robert.
Okay. So you just have to give him another 10%. He's the man of God.
He's the representative of God here on earth. Mm-hmm. Then 10% for an offering, which I don't know what the difference between a tithe and an offering is.
He just came up with it. So, and then there were other things too, because they were charging them rent, and I think they were charging them for tons of stuff.
Oh, they charged them there was like a video, photography fee, so they basically paid out of their earnings to produce these videos.
Yes.
And then, there was a breakdown that Aubrey gave at the very end that basically showed that he was giving away 70% of what he made.
Yeah, before taxes. So that was before taxes. So taxes came out. So he was essentially earning probably 10% of what he was, nothing.
Yeah, and money was a big thing. Like, Robert he was preaching about how basically the more money, the closer to God, or, something like that, like more money, more blessings, and this was a big thing. He was a huge labor trafficker.
Yes.
Not just with these kids, but with everyone, because he had multiple industries, multiple companies. He had like a real estate and mortgage brokerage company. And these are professionals, with licenses.
Yeah, I can't believe that. Yeah.
He's paying this one woman who we'll talk more about later, paying her, what was it, $80 every 2 weeks?
Yes. And she was closing millions of dollars worth of deals, selling homes. Yeah. It was insane.
These people are being trafficked. They are all, for various reasons, feel that, they have to do this. Mm-hmm. So there's a ton of mind control. So the first part of the documentary is, kind of introducing all of these people. And Aubrey Fisher, like I said, he's probably most well known. He comes into the group, and then he brings his girlfriend Kylie, and they just start sort of adding people that they know from these different dance shows. Mm-hmm. And so then
that's essentially part one. So part one is very much sort of talking about 7M and the forming of 7M and the sisters, Melanie and Miranda, and how Miranda got hooked up with the group. And then
there's also the whole thing about the title of the first episode is called Die to Yourself. So this concept of dying to yourself, once he gets all these people into the cult, he introduces this concept of you have to die to yourself and everyone in your family, because that's the only way to get to heaven. And if you don't, then you'll go to hell, and your whole family will go to hell. Mm-hmm. And so you need to cut yourself off from your family, because you can't be associated with any of their sins, and you're doing it for their own good, because you are going to be such a good, obedient person here on earth, that when you die, you'll go to heaven and you'll bring all those people with you.
Yeah. So even if you wanted to run away and say, well, F it, I don't care, I'm going to go to hell, I don't care. But there was such control but you don't want your sister to go to hell. You don't want your parents to go to hell. They're going to go to hell too. And that's what's going to happen. And so that's what kept a lot of people who were sort of ready to go, who wanted out. Well, I can't do this to my family members. I love them, my children,
condemn them to hell. And so of course, Shin has his whole family working this.
Oh yeah.
His wife was the talent manager for these people. And his daughter, Chloe, was, she kind of helped, keep these younger people, at bay. And So then let's see, we have, it was really sad. This one guy, Kevin, who, spoiler alert, he ends up getting out of the cult later, but he has like a little baby son.
Mm-hmm.
He's told that he has to like die to his baby son to quote unquote help him.
Yeah. But he then later says that he was like, that's kind of where they a bit lost me. Like, it sounds like that was a turning point for him a bit too of, oh no.
Yeah. And then I think that, was it, Miranda and Melanie's parents, they say that they asked her about something and she said, because they're starting to get suspicious of this cult, and Melanie's come home and told them about this.
Yeah.
And they ask Miranda about it, and she says, I need to ask someone closer to God than you. And so they said at that moment, they know that they had just lost her.
Yeah.
And that was another thing. It's really tragic to see what these parents have to go through, where their children just from one day to the next.
Yeah.
They
gone.
Literally lose them.
Mm-hmm.
So then, they find out, Miranda and Melanie's parents find out on social media that she and this dancer, James, got married.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they started trying to hook up with other families. There was this guy named Reno. They called him Rain, or I don't know what.
Yeah, that's right.
His name was Nick. They called him Reno. They profile his parents. You know, his parents were the same kind of thing, like going to whatever lengths they could possibly go to try to get in there, just like get any little anything from them.
Yeah.
So then this kind of goes on and on about talking about the.
Well, that's so in the way I interpreted it, that felt like, because the first part was very much about the dancers. And then the second part 2, is about Shekinah, the original, the
old school,
the old school Shekinah
before 7M.
Yes, because we then meet another set of sisters who, it's Priscilla and what's the other girl's name? Who are the two sisters? Priscilla and
it starts with Melanie.
No, that's the other one.
No, they're both.
They're both named Melanie. Okay.
Yeah.
No wonder I was getting confused. Okay. So Priscilla and Melanie, again, same story. They fought, they're from Korea. The father abandoned them. Their mom is working all the time and starts drinking and would disappear. And so these two sisters, it started with the younger one, would go down to the church down the street, which was Robert Shen's Shekinah. And, when you don't have a family and you have no one and no one's paying attention to you, obviously that it was very easy to get both first Melanie and then Priscilla to kind of join in and be like, oh, this is the family we've always wanted. This is what we've always desired. We need to make Robert proud. We need to be there. And so we learned that, prior to forming 7M and meeting these dancers, that this has been Robert's MO forever.
He's been doing this for a while and kind of going under the radar, undetected. But, it turns out that, I don't even know where to start with this guy. I mean, he's just he's so manipulative and so abusive and so yeah, it was no surprise that when Melanie found them, she found a family. She didn't have a family here. And then she convinced her sister to, get involved as well.
Yeah. Because I think that the sister was very reluctant at first and I don't know. And I think again, it sounded to me like one of the things with the older sister, she felt like she was so overwhelmed and so tired of being, this better than I do, of being the older sister and feeling like she had to care for the younger sister and keep it all together and be an adult at 14, 15, 16. I almost got the sense that by the time she got, how she kind of got her, or Robert got her, was just oh, I can relax now. Right. I don't have to take care for this person. He kind of embraced them in this loving way. And then slowly, it was like, oh no, you're not relaxing. oh, no, you're going to start working for me. And both of those girls ended up, right? Everybody who's part of the church works at one of Robert's businesses. And he had tons of them.
Yeah. And like I think it was Melanie who said that she worked. I don't think these guys ever even really formally went to school. Didn't seem like it because Melanie was saying she worked at some smoothie shop from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
And they gave basically all of their earnings over to the church, to Robert. And then he would put them in these houses, different houses, and he separated the sisters. And then things started becoming more and more strict. And they had this kind of hierarchy of, so obviously Robert's at the top. He calls himself man of God. And then his wife is the woman of God. And in the beginning, he was married to, what was her name?
Well, yeah, I think
because the wife that his current wife is Hannah, but he was married to someone else. I think her name was Carolyn or Caroline, something like that. She actually got out of there and took some people with her at some point. But then they had like this level of mentors. So these are people that are kind of higher up that are really brainwashed, spiritual mentors. And then the new members would have to report to the spiritual mentors, and they had to, if they wanted to buy a pair of shoes, they had to go to their spiritual mentor and get approval to get shoes. And, everyone would tell on each other about.
Very Scientology. Very Scientology. But yeah, I mean, all of the pieces, I mean, watching this documentary, what kept hitting me was, well, number one was like, God, you can really make a cult out of anything. Right? You're like TikTok dancing, all you need to do is just get people together, and you get vulnerable people together, and you tell them what you think they need to hear in order to feel safe and secure with you. And then you, once they're hooked, then you slowly, start to basically almost strip them down a little bit. Like they slowly start to lose themselves, and you don't have enough money, and there's not enough food, and you're not sleeping enough, and you're working all the time. And so it's almost, he followed a formula that we've seen, because we've covered a lot of these documentaries, the same formula over and over again of how these master manipulators are able to really take advantage of people.
Yeah. It's isolating people, cutting them off from their families, and then it's brainwashing them, just telling them over and over and over and over. And that's what he did. He just drilled in this thing, like, you will be in hell for the rest of your life, and your whole family will be in hell for, all of you for all eternity if you don't do what I'm telling you to.
Yeah. And again, it's all young people. I mean, these are not 50-year-old dancers. These are,
they're 20, between 20 and 25 at the most.
And one kid was talking about how he was living in his car, right? No one knew he was living in his car. So obviously he did not have, family support or help. I mean, each person, I think of anyone, Miranda probably had the most stable background.
Right. She was the most curious one, because she was the one who was the most, took to it the most, but she did not fit the profile whatsoever. It was very strange.
Well,
she did that.
I think LA also, what's interesting about LA is LA's, it's a tough town, and it's a lonely town. And because everybody
had only been there for a couple months or something, you know what I mean? It's not, and they had money. Their parents had money. They're two sisters. They're together. They have resources. They hadn't been there that long. Why did she just jump? Hold on. But Miranda was there first. Miranda left first because she was older. So she went out there first. And we heard from the parents that she would say, I'm lonely, I'm sad, but I'm happy to be here, and I want this. I'd rather, and that's what a lot of people flock to LA for, is like, they want the dream. They want to be creative. They want to be artists more than the desire to run home and be with their family. So I think she was out there a little bit longer. I think it was harder for her. And then the sister joined. But I think it was just the combination of, I think it was just the fact that she connected with James. I think it was just I think it's much easier to buy things when two people are in it. You have someone kind of who you love and care about, that's your partner, saying to you, no, this is good. This is good. Yeah,
this
reinforcing
is good.
it. Yeah. Well, yeah. And back in Detroit, her parents, Miranda's parents, they called the human trafficking hotline.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was interesting. And the person on the phone is basically saying if it's an adult, they can't intervene unless the adult asks for it,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was a strange response because they got a better response later when they talked to someone in LA who said that, well, yeah, you can help them. We can intervene, but you got to find some underlying crimes.
Yes.
Because it's not a crime to be in a cult.
Yes.
Like, if you want to do that, and if you want to be a cult leader and people will follow you, there's no crime involved. But obviously there's tons of crimes underlying it. There's labor trafficking, there's sexual abuse going on, there's all this, financial stuff. Oh, one of the financial things that actually came back to help the sisters when they filed their lawsuit was
this was the second set of sisters.
Yeah, Priscilla, the one she was a broker, real estate broker, and so they opened up an account in her name and got these checks and had her sign a bunch of checks. They were basically laundering money like through her bank account. And she wasn't receiving a penny of this money, but they would make these large deposits in there and then write checks to the church and write checks to here and there and whatever. And so that's a financial crime. So it was stuff like that. Like she knew that information. She was able to use that.
Yeah. What I thought was really interesting is this is where things with the cult started to turn a little bit, right? So in the second episode, we hear the stories of Melanie and Priscilla and their own experiences. And it turns out the younger sister, Melanie, got out of the church first. And the older sister ended up staying another 10 years. Like they had no relationship at all. Like they could not, don't like Scientology. They could not communicate with each other. And then the third episode, and you and I were talking about this before we started, I felt I wanted to talk about the lawsuit. Hold on one second. So here's my question. How is it? So if Priscilla was earning all this money, let's say she earned $1 million from all of her, all the properties she sold. And then, someone from Robert Shin's family would come around and say, okay, we're going to cut, we're going to cut a bunch of checks and you're going to sign them, Priscilla, from your account to pay us back. So, but is that really a crime if Priscilla is doing it of her own free will? I mean, she's obviously manipulated and brainwashed, but I'm just saying that, like, from an outsider looking in, how is that if they didn't put a gun to her head? I mean, she signed it.
Okay, but she wasn't earning a paycheck. Like, that was not her money on paper.
Mm-hmm.
They just used her information, her social security number, whatever, to open an account. And it's not like they deposit. It's not like they said, oh, okay, here's your earnings. It's $100,000. We're just going to put it in here.
They never so Priscilla never controlled the account.
Well, they said it was in her name, so she would have had to sign her name for it. But I think she just signed the paperwork and then they said, here, just sign all these checks. And she just turned it over to them.
Mm-hmm.
The deposits I highly doubt that the deposits going into the account said, to Priscilla Lee for, it wasn't like a paycheck or they were just putting random money in there that they were trying to launder.
Okay.
But even if she, they did give her a check and said, this is your paycheck. She deposits it in her account. And she wanted to give it to them. That's what people in cults do. They always turn over. They're required to turn over all or most of their earnings. So there's nothing illegal about that. But I don't think that's what they were doing. It sounded to me like it was a money laundering type thing.
Got it. Okay. Understand.
But going back to still in episode 2, this also focuses a lot on the families getting involved and trying to get their kids back. And so I think this is the first time where Miranda and Melanie's parents, what are their names?
I can
never remember their names. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, they go to Los Angeles and they're literally looking for her, like trying to find her. And they're trying to get clues from these dance videos. And there's a bunch of videos showing her dancing in a residential neighborhood. And there's these water towers in the background. And so they get out a map and they're trying to isolate the different water towers because they know the general area where she's living in. And they're driving around the streets and they're looking around, and then they find her. Mm-hmm. They literally find her like out there dancing in the street.
Yeah.
And same thing with this guy, Nick's parents. They went out there. They tried to find him, tried to track him down. And he sort of kind of talked to them, but he was really just like, they weren't really there. They weren't themselves anymore. Like when these parents would find their kids, it was like they just had this wall up. Mm-hmm. And it was not just going to just automatically come down because mom and dad show up.
Yeah.
And then another thing that, that, what's his name? Robert tried to do, because he was trying to say that, okay, God, this is so hard to talk about. So many things happen because how this kind of blew up was that, the parents, what are their names?
No, I was looking for it. Sorry. And then I gave up.
Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. So Miranda and Melanie's parents and Melanie make a TikTok or an Instagram or some video kind of pleading for, telling people what is happening with Miranda and pleading for the public's help. And of course, this really pissed off Robert. Mm-hmm. So then he turned around, he said, well, they're just upset because Miranda has a black boyfriend / husband now, I guess. And, that this is a racial thing. And but then Robert realized that, he's kind of been exposed and he started cracking down even more. And he made all these dancers sign NDAs. And at a certain point, then, some of them start to realize, they start to compare notes and they start to realize like, oh my God, like we're in a cult.
Mm-hmm. So things really blew up when Miranda's parents and Melanie went public. And what I thought was very interesting about this documentary, which we have not seen in other documentaries, was Robert Shin was like, okay, I've got to pivot now. I've got to pivot. This is too much attention. Too much attention is on me and on my cult because of these parents. So what he does is he goes to Miranda and some of the other kids and he says, go see your parents. Go see them. You have a good relationship with them. And what then happens is this dynamic happens where Miranda reached out to the parents and wanted to see them and wanted to talk to them. But anytime they tried to bring up Shekinah or 7M or Robert, she would shut down and she would be upset. And so the parents were in this really tough bind because they wanted to have a relationship with Miranda, so they were walking on eggshells, tiptoeing around her not to bring up these things. But I thought that Melanie, the other two sisters, the two Korean sisters that got involved in the church originally, I thought she brought up a very, very good point, which was she said that, as long as you continue to tiptoe around her and not bring up Robert, nothing's going to change.
Right.
Like that's exactly what Robert wanted.
That's what he wants.
It was very smart. That's very smart.
You go home, but no one's allowed to ask you any questions. Mm-hmm. And you film it, like, an Instagram worthy film.
Yes.
It's Christmas. Here we're all together. And then you post it. And then he can say, see, I'm not doing anything. They still have, their parents can see them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as long as you don't say anything about or question anything about the church.
Yeah. So he realized like, oh, this is my way of I'm now controlling the parents, and I'm controlling the parents' relationship with them by controlling them and controlling all of this. And I just thought it was really interesting when Melanie was saying, but nothing's going to change. Like you do. And I'm with her on this one, which is as much as it might be painful and difficult, and it might mean that she might break away from you again, you do have to, right? You do have to keep going and going and going and telling her and asking questions and reinforcing reality to her, or this will never end.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So at the end of, so episode 2 is called The Escape. And at the end of it is when probably one of the best friends you could ever have, Marquis, basically, what's her name? Melanie Lee, the sister, the younger sister, the Lee sisters, she decides she's going to make a run for it. And he shows up with a van and a baseball bat. And literally, as soon as they're trying to leave, some car pulls up and is blocking the driveway. And I don't know, he didn't say what he did with the bat, but he did something enough to scare this person off so that they could like leave and escape.
But the one thing that didn't work out was that Melanie Lee was going to keep it secret. And she's like, oh, hey, is it Marquis? Marquis is his friend.
Mm-hmm.
So she said to Marquis, like, listen, we're going to get me out. And then I'm not going to call my sister. I'm not going to tell her anything. We're just going to run and grab her and force her with us. And we'll all escape together. But because that car showed up, someone
tipped her off.
Someone got to Priscilla and tipped her off. And so then Priscilla, unfortunately, had time to think about it and then refused to go. Which was so painful. I mean, the whole thing with the sisters, which is what we see more in the third episode, but that was incredibly, incredibly painful and difficult to see her just stay another 10 years plus.
Yeah. And then I'm wondering, they don't go into this in the documentary, but I'm wondering, okay, well then where does Melinda go? Or Melanie? So many M's. I mean, where does Melanie go?
Because, she has no money. She has nothing.
And now today she's a successful, professional. She's married with a kid. How did you go from escaping that cult? And what was that? I think it was 2011. So here we are 13 years later. And she's very successful.
Yes. Well, and you can see the differences. This is what we see in the third episode. We see very much the differences between the sisters and where they are emotionally and where they are, because we can see Priscilla is still going through it. Priscilla is she's out of the cult, but she is working through some stuff.
Well, as soon as
Melanie,
I was going to say, as soon as Melanie left, Priscilla started being abused at the hands of Robert, for a long time. I don't think that Melanie really experienced that level of abuse.
No, I don't think she did either. And again, I think it's Priscilla maybe throwing herself on the sword a bit to protect her younger sister. Yeah. So I was saying before we started that I felt like the third episode, and I don't know if other people thought this too, it felt like the third episode was a little bit of a disconnect, because the first 2 episodes were all things that happened in the past. And so this is where we are now. And then everything was happening in the third episode was sort of happening in real time. And actually, when I was looking for the parents' names, which I still can't find, I guess apparently the documentarian, the documentary filmmaker, the director came in around the time that the Wilkins made those videos, made the first video of "We're Worried About Miranda." And so these things were happening in real time. So that makes a lot more sense to me now, where they had heard about this story. They're like, oh, let's start following this story. And so they started following it. And then everything that we see in the third part is like everybody trying to, like the 2 sisters, the Lee sisters trying to recover and figure out what are we going to do. And then the Wilkins trying to still figure out how to get Miranda and figuring out like the other family to get Nick. Like all these things are happening in real time.
Yeah, because it's only been happening for a couple of years. I think it starts in 2021. This is where this all starts, where, the sisters go to LA and they start, where Robert pivots to this entertainment industry kind of thing. So yeah, we're not between the time they started filming and the time they wrapped it up and had to produce the documentary and put it out, a couple days ago, it's not been that long.
Yeah.
3 years.
The funny thing too is somewhere around when I started to tune into, I think was this in this end of the second episode or third episode, but around the time I was like, God, this is interesting. This guy, of all we've seen so many of these documentaries, I guess he's not interested in sex. And sure enough, I'm like,
little
yeah,
did you know.
Little did I know. And then was that the second or third episode? All of a sudden, all the women come out. I'm like, well, why did I doubt that? Why in one moment did I not think that Robert would use the same thing to get sex? Like, I don't know why I thought somehow, he's just not like every other cult leader. Of course he is, that he wants to, right. And he had a little bit of the Jeffrey Epstein thing of, I'm the man of God, come to me, let's just have a massage. Let's just massage me.
Yeah, we'll start out with the massages.
Mm-hmm. And then you've had to go lower and lower. Yeah, and can you imagine like higher, lower, higher? I mean, oh my God. But yeah, I mean, so he's been abusing women constantly. And there was a lot of like, everyone wanted to be the woman of God. And I'm sure he promised all the women, oh yeah, sleep with me and I'll make you the woman of God. And I guess at one point, a bunch of the women got together and confronted him at the church in front of everybody. And still he was able to figure out, okay, again, how do I pivot? How do I sell this to people so that people don't start leaving? And he managed to, some people left for sure, but he still managed to sell it to a lot of people of, well, even though I'm the man of God, I'm human and I make mistakes and you still have to, you have to understand that, isn't it? It's okay for me to make mistakes.
Yeah, he really did turn that around. He did.
He was good.
This is just a normal part of being human. And, so sue me, what? It's like,
well,
I'm a person too. I
have needs. I need massages. I need lots of massages.
Yeah. Well, so then at some point, this woman, Hannah, becomes his wife. And apparently she's just a nightmare and she's horrible to Priscilla. And poor Priscilla, she won't leave. She doesn't think she can leave. And then she, because she's doing the massages and the sex and he's she literally holes herself up in this room and prints out Bible scriptures and covers the walls with them and is just trying to survive. And then I guess Robert comes in, whenever he wants to have sex with her. And I mean, she's just like a prisoner there.
Yeah.
And then one day Hannah comes in and, starts a fight with her. And I guess that's when she finally realizes she'd rather go to hell than there.
Yeah.
She knows she's going to hell, but who cares?
Yeah.
So that's what it took. And then again, I don't know where she went or how did she survive?
Yeah, I don't know how she's able to, because I mean, obviously these are smart women, but they don't have educations. But if she was a real estate agent, maybe she's like, well, listen, I still have a license under my name.
She kept that license.
Yeah. And and maybe that's how she's making money now. But what happened was that, so from that, the Priscilla decided, you know what? I'm going to sue him. I'm pissed. I'm going to sue him. So she brings a lawsuit. It's a civil lawsuit and is suing for money for, but then at the same time, the Wilkins family and some of these other families are like, well, we want him behind bars. This isn't fair. So they start a criminal investigation. They start to put together, they are trying to, I should say.
That's a strong statement.
Okay.
I felt sorry for them because well, first of all, at some point between Priscilla leaving the cult and, the legal stuff starting to happen, she and Melanie reunite. Because they hadn't been in contact. And I think Melanie said she saw something about it on the news, when it came out with these TikTok people started coming out. And she's just like, oh my God, this guy is still doing this. And where is my sister?
Yeah.
So she finds out her sister is out or whatever. And so they kind of team up. So there's there's a couple different things going on. Yeah. Like so Priscilla really wants to sue him, in civil court for a laundry list of different things. And they kind of quickly pan to the complaint, and I was like slowing it down, trying to catch up. I mean, all this stuff like fraud, human trafficking, forced labor, intentional infliction of emotional distress, failure to pay minimum wage, unjust enrichment, sexual battery. I mean, there was 35 different counts. So it was Melanie, Priscilla, and 3 others were suing the church. But what happened was word got out that they were suing. And so to kind of head them off at the pass, Robert filed first.
Mm-hmm.
So he filed a lawsuit for defamation because they were already out there talking about him.
Yeah.
And saying things and disparaging the church. So he files a lawsuit for defamation, interference with, prospective economic relations. And they were pissed. But so then they had to file a countersuit. So all their charges are in a countersuit against him. So it's all one big lawsuit now.
Psych Legal Pop will be back after these messages. Hey there, it's Tess Brigham, the therapist half of Psych Legal Pop. In addition to being a therapist, I'm also a coach, speaker, and author. And if you go to my website, you'll find courses, ebooks, and worksheets for sale. If you're feeling a bit lost, overwhelmed by life's twists and turns, or you're just simply stuck, I've got you covered. Head over to my website, www.tessbrigham.com, for courses, ebooks, and worksheets tailored to help you unlock your true potential. From relationship struggles to career transitions, I'm here to guide you every step of the way. So stop looking outside of yourself at friends, family, social media for the answers. The answers to all your questions are inside of you. My products and services are the first step in uncovering your true you.
The Bleacher Report app is your destination for sports. Right now, the NBA is heating up, March Madness is here, and MLB is almost back. Every day there's a new headline, a new highlight, a new moment you've got to see for yourself. That's why I stay locked in with the Bleacher Report app. For me, it's about staying connected to my sports. I can follow the teams I care about, get real-time scores, breaking news, and highlights all in one place. Download the Bleacher Report app today so you never miss a moment.
I love this stuff so then I don't know why Priscilla didn't want to just hire a process server. She wanted to watch this service happening or whatever. So she gets some friends together and they get in the car, they have walkie-talkies, they have a plan, and they end up like they're camped out outside the church waiting for Robert to come back. And it turns out that he and his family or friends, all these defendants, they're just down at the Korean restaurant down the street.
Yeah, just eating dinner.
And they film all this and they show their friends walking in to serve them. And they just kind of go, oh, okay, put the stuff down and go on eating.
I think these people get served a lot. I think there's a lot of lawsuits because
I don't think they're surprised.
Yeah. I think I think their attorneys are working around the clock to try to keep these people.
Yeah. And even Priscilla is, she can't go in there. She's outside in the car kind of watching this all go down. And she says that she weirdly feels bad for them.
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting because you know what it is? It's like, because she feels bad because she's a human being, because she has these emotions. And this is, I think, the part that is so hard, I think, for everybody to wrap your brain around. Like when I'm watching these documentaries, I would assume that most people have the same thoughts that I do. I go back and forth of this, oh my God, how awful is this? And a little bit of, you think about, right, how would you react if this was me? And then you also think about, okay, why? Like, why did you keep going? Why did you keep believing these things? And I think, so much of it is, you have to be at the tippy top to treat people this way. You have to be somewhat a bit of a sociopath.
Oh, exactly.
You have to be devoid of care for other human life.
No regard for anybody but yourself. No,
yes.
So,
and then the flip side is I think, which is my 2 cents, but I think in order to be controlled by a cult, I think you have to also be deeply empathetic. and have that. I think that that's why there's why artists and get caught up in a lot of this kind of stuff. And again, young people that have, wide open minds, but also, I don't know, just a desire for, or caring of love, because, for other people. And I think that's why, because Priscilla's a human being.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. So apparently the only other time anyone tried to sue him for this particular, cult-like stuff was in 2009. A woman sued, but it was thrown out of court because of the First Amendment protection for churches. Because again, there wasn't, I guess she couldn't plead any underlying crimes. And that if you're an adult, you can do this, even if someone's controlling you. Even though that's true, even if they're brainwashing you, controlling you, it's not a crime. So the other parallel thing that's going on is that the like the Wilkins family and some of the other people really feel strongly that he should be, there should be some criminal consequence to this.
Yes.
But they don't really have, they have this dancer, Kylie, who was in a relationship with Aubrey, but by this point, I don't think they're in a relationship anymore. Anyway, She had an experience where she was having a back problem, and Robert said, because he kept saying he was a doctor. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway, he's like, I'm going to do like some chiropractic type thing on you and crack your back and I'll help you. And in the process, he basically sexually assaulted her. Yeah. Doing this thing.
Very similar to what's the Olympic coach, our friend, God, what's his name? The guy that got caught, the Olympic doctor.
Oh yeah, that guy. Nasser,
Larry Nasser.
What he was doing was even
but that's a bit of what Larry Nasser's MO, which is, he was the doctor, so I'm going to do a quote unquote procedure.
Right.
And then it was sexual assault.
Yeah. So that I don't know, I'm not sure how that came out, but she told somebody. And then again, so then you've got the dad in Michigan who's making like a Homeland style murder board.
Yes.
Trying to, it's like, okay, we have this person over here who has this claim and this claim, whatever. So Kylie, I guess, walks into the police precinct and, some LA neighborhood and, files a report and says, this person sexually assaulted me. And I guess the police kind of say, well, we need more.
Yeah.
We need more than just your word against this guy's word, especially when you're a guy like this. And so then they find I don't know if she was a dancer, but someone who was in his orbit, some former church member who she was an anonymous victim because she was worried about retaliation. And he was telling her that it was an honor to spend time with him and massaging him because he was a man of God and it would be like pleasing God.
Yeah. Yeah. But was that Priscilla who started to talk about how she started to almost feel sick when she was with him? Like she started to feel ill. And I was like, God, did he give her at first I thought he gave her some kind of weird disease.
She said it was like stomach, she feel like physically ill, like abdominal pain and maybe even throwing up and stuff. And he told her that was the bad coming out of her.
Yeah.
And the more time he spent with her, the more would come out and the better it would get eventually over time. But no, actually, it was actually getting worse.
But again, just to pull back to another cult, like the other group, the Keith Raniere group, right? I remember from that documentary, that's The Vow. That was talked about a lot too. Like the women talked about like when they were sleeping with him, like feeling physically ill, like this, like it's almost this person. It's like their psychopathy, their ugliness. It's almost like it feeds onto you in a weird way, you know?
Yeah, it makes you physically sick because you're mentally tortured. So the mind and the body are connected.
Yes.
So
the body keeps the score.
Yeah. So that's what happens. But I can't remember if it was unclear to me whether this anonymous victim actually made a report or not. Not really sure. But then they wanted Priscilla to make a report.
Mm-hmm.
And at first she was just like, no, like, she said something like, I let them do that to me. Like she's still feeling guilty, blaming herself. And then around this time, she also starts kind of pulling away from Melanie, even though they had been united on this lawsuit and very focused. And then there was that scene, like in
the restaurant,
the Japanese tea house or whatever that was.
Yeah. That was
that was some really raw shit.
Yeah. And I don't think in any of these other documentaries that we've been able to see that at that raw level before.
Mm-hmm, no.
Right? Like this real raw and sort of like two people that were part of the same group and sort of, you know, how each person's experience is very unique and you know, the time away from it and all of that of just seeing these two sisters and how it must, I mean, I cannot imagine what Priscilla's going through because it just sounds like every moment of every day is tough for Priscilla.
Yeah, she basically is saying every moment of every day she wants to kill herself, you know, still to this day. And so what happens is Melanie is upset with Priscilla because Priscilla had kind of been pulling away and it was Melanie's daughter's birthday and Priscilla showed up late and she didn't apologize for being late.
Mm-hmm.
And then Priscilla like tears her a new one.
Yeah.
And says, look, basically, I'm fighting every day to not kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, do you want me to kill myself or you want me to come apologize to you? I mean, she said a lot more than that. Can't remember all everything she said, but it was powerful. It was raw. And then you see the look kind of come over Melanie where she's like, oh shit. Like,
where she realizes what it was, because what Melanie was doing in that moment was, I think Melanie feels her sister pulling away. The sister, Priscilla had promised to come early and help set up. So I think in Melanie's mind, she's like, oh, my sister's going to come early. We're going to set up. And then to have her sister come in late and not say anything to her, right? Melanie's sort of like, well, I want to have a mature relationship with my sister. Let's communicate. Because this is the world Melanie's been living in, you know, for the last 10 plus years. Like she wants to have an adult conversation and put it out there thinking that Priscilla would say, okay, I'm sorry. Yes, next time I'll apologize. Not really knowing, like, no. This has got nothing to do with the fact that I'm trying to let your kid down or you down or anyone else down. It sounds like it took everything inside of her to show up to the party.
Oh, yeah, because Melanie said something about how, like it disappointed her daughter or why would you do that, to your niece? And Priscilla says, something like, do you really think I understand what it means to love a child?
Yeah.
Like she doesn't
huge.
She doesn't understand anything other than just being controlled, being told you're going to go to hell every day, feeling like you want to kill yourself every day. I mean,
yeah, no, that was incredible. And I thought very, very, very real and very true on so many different levels. Because as she talks about it, we learn, right? Priscilla wanted to have children. I don't know how old she is now, but she feels like it's too late for her to have children. I think
she's like because she talked about being in her 20s and then she's like, and now it's 20 years later. So she's probably like in her mid 40s.
Yeah. So she feels like she can't have a child now. And so I think it's probably right. It's there's two parts to what she's saying. Part of it is I cannot relate to you at all because these are like everyday emotions and feelings that people have. And I've not been allowed to have those feelings. I've been so controlled. And at the same time, it's the other layer of, and I see you here with a child and I'm never going to be able to have a child.
Right.
And all of the anger and resentment, and she must feel a certain level of anger and resentment towards her sister, which is very normal, very, very normal to see where her sister is and where she is. And, some of these things, and we see her going around Priscilla, right? We see her meeting up with her father again.
Yeah. She goes to Korea and dresses down her father.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
For abandoning them. And she really kind of gives it to him. And at one point, he tries to put his hand on her shoulder, and she's like, "Don't touch me." Mm-hmm. And then he tries again, and she's like, "Don't touch me."
Yeah.
and then she started, after all that, she was talking about how, she's starting to have to realize like how to live, how to take the power back, how to make her own decisions, because she's been just told what to do.
Yeah.
For all this time.
And I can imagine being able to say to her father, "Don't touch me. Don't touch me." That's huge. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he touched her again when she said, "Don't touch me," I thought it was huge. And I think that it's very easy maybe to see her and be like, "God, she's being real harsh with dad over here." But it's a little bit of like,
I don't think so. He abandoned them.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on this. But I could also see the other side of that of like, she is very, very angry. And she is finally now really kind of getting to the heart of, we were abandoned out in the middle of nowhere. We were prey. It was so easy for this guy to show up in our world, because if it wasn't him, it would have been someone else or something else would have gotten to us, because we were two young children left alone with no parents.
Yeah. So ultimately later, like right before it ends, Priscilla does go into the same, they see her going into the same police precinct and giving a statement, but still to this day, he has not been criminally charged. And I don't know if this documentary is going to influence that. I mean,
I don't know.
I think this documentary is going to be huge. It's already like number 1 in 10 countries or something right now. And I think this might put enough pressure on the police that it has to. Here, we're telling you, this guy's like right under your nose. LAPD, it's like FBI, somebody do something.
I think it's like a Keith Raniere thing. I think that this will push them to start investigating this guy and start paying attention to what's going on. Much like with the Keith Raniere situation, because he was still, until The Vow and and the podcasts and these articles started coming out, he was, he continued to operate. So yeah, I think, time's up on you, Robert Shinn.
I hope so.
Time's up.
God, if not, I mean, I don't know, but that's what's so hard is that because it's like the people in the cults aren't going to turn on him, but I mean, they can get search warrants and they can get proof of all of this stuff. But again, you have to have enough evidence to get a search warrant. But get on it, people.
Yeah. Well, and again, there's the problem being that one woman's account of being sexually assaulted isn't enough. 2 women, not enough. Priscilla goes in. Is that enough? Right?
Well,
how many women have to come forward?
I think it should be 1.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding.
How many do we need? I mean, I think one person who can tell you, who can give you information about possible other victims, then go and try to talk to those victims. It's called police investigation.
Yeah. Versus making the victims themselves find those other people and deal with all that.
Saying, well, if you come back with, 2, 3, 4 more women, maybe we'll take this seriously. I mean, who does that? No, someone comes and reports a crime and has a lot of information and a lot of things that can be investigated, corroborated with. Fucking do your job.
Yeah, well.
Pissed me off.
Well, yeah, and that's why I think, we're really, have we done anything with policing at all? It feels a little bit like, okay, this is not the 1970s, 80s, 90s, not even the early aughts. Like, these people were going into the police station in 2022, 2023, and we are still operating the same way we've always operated, which is, making the victim have to prove over and over again that this happened to them, not believing them, needing, it's not good enough if it happened to one woman, it needs to happen to a bunch of other women, right? Like, it's just, and forcing these women to tell these stories over and over and over again, and then being questions like, well, why would you stay for that? And why would you deal with that? And what's this? And what's that? It's like, get a Netflix subscription, police. Right. I mean, it's a little bit like, watch enough of these documentaries. I think you could figure this out. And so that was really disappointing to me. I felt like, God, policing isn't, are we going to do anything about this? We're not doing anything. We're just sort of going, yeah, policing's bad. Okay.
Well, and just like I said, the fact that this cult leader has been operating in plain sight for decades, and he's doing it, and like I said, there were rumors of this, a couple of years ago, and we're just now getting around to it. Yeah, I was really wondering how the filmmaker came to this, or like what was it that started this process of
well, yeah, I read this somewhere that apparently it really started with this woman named Jessica
Acevedo.
Acevedo, yeah. And so I guess she has a dance background, and I think she's the one that found the director. And the director's done another documentary called The Last Dance. I've never seen that one, but so I think she's the one that maybe saw this, but I think other people were covering it. We meet a reporter from, I can't remember where she's from, who narrates who's also
Stone.
Yeah, she's also part of the documentary as well, sort of talking and kind of coming in and explaining things as we go. So she was just, because she covers,
these types of cases for Rolling Stone. But I mean, I just wonder how the producer and the director, how they got tipped off to all this. I don't know. Maybe it was these former dancers who reached out, because, there's more than even just what we see in this documentary. And also to this day, so I go to Miranda Derrick's Instagram, and she has 1.6 million followers, and she's still posting every day. She's still dancing, posting her dances. She posted a picture from her sister's wedding.
So she did go to the sister's wedding.
She went to the wedding.
Yeah.
And at the end they say that, it's Kelly and Dean. Those are the parents. They are still playing this game with her. They still maintain contact with her and James, but they don't bring up the church. And then they said Nick's parents have retired to focus on him, to focus on trying to get him back.
Those poor parents. I mean, my heart.
I know.
This is not what you wanted. This is not what you thought your retirement years were going to be like. But if we can go back for 1 second, because I was on Reddit, and it was interesting to hear people's thoughts on Reddit, because some people are like, oh, well, the young sisters, I have empathy for them because they were young, but these dancers, I don't have a lot of empathy for them or sympathy for them because they're adults, and come on, they signed all these things. And what I was saying earlier about LA is that LA is it's very lonely in many ways. The business itself is tough. It's hard to meet people. It's hard to, you automatically, the minute you get into that, you are faced with rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection. So this is why, same thing with Scientology. This is why the dancers were so vulnerable in that way, because here was someone coming around saying, oh, you want the Hollywood dream? I can give you the Hollywood dream. Here, I can give this to you. And if you have someone who's older than you, even though you're 22, 23, if you have someone who's older than you that seems to have all this money, who seems to know something and calls himself a man of God, it's very easy to start to go, oh, okay. It was really hard trying to do all these videos all by myself. And Robert's coming in and he's going to represent me and take care of things for me. And isn't that great? And someone believes in me. That's the other part of it too, is that, it's about belief within the self.
Yeah.
And when you're out there on your own, it's hard.
All of that makes sense. But what doesn't make sense to me is when what goes along with that is that you basically have to, be in this church that tells you that if you don't do everything that this one man tells you to do, that you're going to go to hell and your whole family is going to go to hell. That's a bridge too far. I mean, that's really very, very extreme.
But because some of the dancers, right? Some of the dancers grew up in homes that it sounds like there was some sort of religious upbringing, right? Where one guy said, I can't remember which one he said, I hadn't been going to church that much. And since I got to LA, I wasn't going to church. And oh, you have church services. Okay, great. I'm going to start going to church. So I do think that if you maybe grew up with a certain amount of religion in your life and being told certain things and heaven and hell and some of these things, maybe it's just easy to just kind of make that leap.
I don't know. This sounds very extreme. I mean, I've been to a few different churches in my life. I have never heard this kind of extreme rhetoric. It's just very, I don't know, very extreme. It seemed very extreme to me. I don't know. I'm not blaming anyone for falling into this.
Yeah.
They're victims. I just think guy's a scumbag. He needs to go to jail. Someone needs to get on it.
Yeah.
To do something.
I just think that I think it's a bit of like how people end up in cults, I think is a perfect storm of how they were raised and the beliefs that they were raised with, combined with where you are in your life, combined with enough circumstances and the right things. I think it's just a magic formula, because I'm sure Robert Shin has done this little dance with everybody. And so these are the people that latched on and said, yes, I'm going to.
It's not always successful.
Yes.
I wonder what the percentage is of how many people you have to try to recruit. Like, how does that translate into how many people are successful recruits?
And that's what I'm always thinking about when I'm watching these documentaries. I often think, like, if we hadn't grown up in a household where our father was like, everybody's full of shit, not very religious. He's
very skeptical.
Very skeptical. I'm an atheist. I don't get, people are idiots. This person, we
don't know if he's an atheist, Tess, because remember, he wouldn't answer your question.
Oh, that's right. He wouldn't tell me whether or not he believed in the afterlife or God. But that's the thing. We grew up with both of our parents, but especially our father, who were always kind of like, what, huh? And so I think it would be easy for us if we were, even though we were, maybe if we were the same age as these sisters, I think it would never work for us, because we were told so early on over and over again, like, don't, this is ridiculous, or believe in this, or just even sort of what we were taught. Question authority and question things that happen. And also, you're smart, believe in yourself. You can do it. You don't need other people. You don't need this thing over here. So that's what I always wonder. I always think, like, if I was raised differently, would I have fallen for this? Because I do often wonder if I could have fallen into a cult. I don't know. I fear between the two of us, it would have been me for sure.
Yeah. I have a hard time picturing me falling into a cult.
I feel like I could have. If you picked a good time, but that's the thing, if you picked me at a time when I was really, really vulnerable and really needed someone to embrace me and make me feel like I was part of something, because what Robert gave to both the dancers and to the Lee sisters is family, family, community and family. And that's what people need. That's what everyone is so hungry for. And so someone's offering it to you and love bombing you along the way. I mean, how do you not take that?
Yeah.
So, so hard.
I forget where I was reading this, but, people are now saying, because these dancers are still putting out content, and I'm sure they're going to get more followers now because people are going to see this documentary and be curious.
Yeah.
But they're saying, but if you're supporting the dancers, you're supporting Robert Shin, because this all goes back to him.
That's interesting.
It doesn't go to them.
Yeah.
It doesn't support them. It supports him. Well, yeah, God, I don't know.
So what do you do?
Someone's got to intervene. Yeah. I don't know who. Oprah? Like,
what's Oprah up to right now?
Does Oprah have time to talk to these kids?
Yes. Yeah. What was I was gonna say something, and then it just left me.
Well, some
middle-aged.
Some follow-ups. So, but people who left are doing well. So, Aubrey Fisher, he just released a single.
Oh,
he's embarking on a singing career, and he still does, dancing. Has different gigs. That guy, Concrete. I don't know what his
and he's the one is. He really, really struggled. Like that was what I was going to say earlier, was that how much people struggled, just how, like, we're seeing Priscilla struggle, but but Priscilla was in it for 23 years.
You're right.
These kids, I think it was 2 to 3, maybe 2 years, something like that. But even those 2 years, just like the losing any kind of excitement to dance anymore.
Well, that's what every single one of them said, that this experience really just took their the pleasure of dance and their dream and their fight and everything away. But they got it back fairly quickly. They bounced back. So
that's good.
Concrete, he's married to that other, I don't know if she was a dancer, but she was involved. What was her name?
Yeah, I think she was a dancer.
Was she a dancer?
Yeah.
I'm blanking on her name. It's like Camalia, something like that. And I don't know if that's the mother of his child. Anyway, he was dancing with Beyonce. Beyonce's backup dancer.
Yes.
And there was some other gig, a really big gig that he had. So I think he's doing pretty well. And then that girl, Kylie, she started a dance studio. She seems happy.
Yeah, she found her.
She found her niche. But and she was also saying that this was another thing. Because she was not one of the most popular dancers in terms of, so Robert determined who was going to dance with who to what song, how many dances you were going to get, how much exposure you were going to get. And that was all dependent on how compliant you were.
Yes. And how much you were earning too.
Right.
Earnings. Because he would announce earnings at the church meetings.
Right. He'd say, oh, Aubrey just booked a commercial. He made $37,000, And so she was not favored much. And so she said she would, and it was humiliating and embarrassing. And she would sometimes just show up at these dance sets, and she wasn't dancing. She was just helping or something. So, that's the least of it. But I thought that was interesting.
But it's another sort of side piece of this, and just to talk about the industry and, with SAG-AFTRA, SAG and the unions going on strike last year, that they were talking about these dancers, like there is no protection for any of these dancers. Let's put Robert Shin aside. Okay. So for these dancers, there's really, there's, when you're an artist like this, there's no healthcare, there's no protection for you. So I think that's the other part too, is it was easy for them to give away their money because it was like, well, they never made money from this. They you know what I mean? It's like, I think they
didn't have any money before.
Yeah. And so, and someone's allowing them to do their art, and it's not coming out of their pockets. Right. So, so I think that's the other part of it too, is there was because the industry has no protection. There's something a little bit about the dance world too. There's a little bit of like, I don't know enough about the dance world to know, but where are the associations? Where are the groups that are going to protect people that are dancers? Because they were so used to being treated so horribly by, and we see this time and again on Quiet on the Set, on all of these Hollywood documentaries of just how poorly people are treated when they're coming up, that, there's some sort of onus on these people on the dance world or whomever's the governing body of this.
Yeah. Well, is there a governing body? Because I don't know. If you dance in a music video, I highly doubt you have any protection like you would if you were in a commercial on TV or in an episode of a TV show or anything. I don't think they have any of those rules.
Yeah.
And this is even a step removed. We're talking about putting this management company, putting out producing content to be put on these people's personal. This is their personal Instagram TikTok feed. It's not 7M account. It's their accounts. So there's all kinds of shady stuff. But again, these are like people who are 22. They're in Los Angeles. They're living their dream. They're living in a nice house. They're living with all their friends. They're being taken care of.
Yeah. So you think you've got 1 million subscribers, you got 1 million people on Instagram, and, you think you've made it, when in actuality, it's like, no, you're being taken advantage of. And so even if you're not in this cult with Robert Shin, I think this is the way of a lot of dancers. I think that, and this is a problem with the entertainment industry and a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, this is going to be a huge documentary. I wanted to watch it as soon as possible because I want it to be a cutting edge. So sorry if it was a little disjointed. It's just it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of information there.
But it was really interesting.
Yeah.
And I like, it seems like a lot of these documentaries have started this formula a little bit of doing 3 episodes, and 1 is sort of the setup of the story, and the 2 is sort of like what happens, and then 3 is like the reckoning. You know, it's really, it's interesting. And I like how that, you know, how these documentaries are because it gives you enough information to get a real sense of everything, but it's not, it's hard to hear story after story after story. That was when I was doing The Secrets of Playboy.
Oh yeah.
That's why I had to stop. That
was like 10 or 12 episodes.
It was 10 episodes of horror. Just awful. I had, you know, you told me to stop watching it, and I just stopped watching it. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. This is terrible. So I do like these 3, you know, this new structure.
3 is my max. Yeah.
3 is a good number.
3 is a good number. Even, and also 2, 3, and they should only be 45 to 50 minutes each.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's my recommendation.
Yes.
For all you documentarians out there
that are listening to us right now and that have made it this long to the end of the podcast.
I know that you.
If anyone is still listening,
yes. I know you've edited it from 57,000 hours down to 3, but just a little bit more. You could shave off just a little bit more.
But I'm telling you, I could watch those sisters in that Japanese tea garden place all day long.
Oh,
and that is reality television. That is documentary. That is real.
That was the most realist thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah. And just Melanie's reaction to it. Because Melanie thought she was coming in with this, like, I'm going to be an adult and I'm going to tell my sister how I feel. And then really it hitting her of like, oh my God, what am I doing here with my sister? Like, I'm trying to have a relationship with her that she's not ready to have with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to figure out how do I what do I do? What's my place in all of this? And it's so hard. So hard.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway.
Highly recommend.
Yes.
So a couple of announcements. If you are interested in more content from us, we have a Patreon. Just go to patreon.com and PsychLegalPop. Search for our name. And then if you join Patreon for $8 a month, you can get a weekly bonus episode where we just talk about whatever pop culture things are happening that week. Talk a little bit about ourselves. We do once a month, we do a Ask Us Anything episode where you can submit questions and we will answer them. And then once a month, we also do a bonus true crime episode. And if you would also like to support us further, just make sure you're subscribed to this podcast. And if you have time, if you could please give us a 5-star rating and or review, that would help us. And we appreciate any support. Also, you can find us on Instagram at PsychLegalPop. And you can also contact us through email, psychlegalpoppodcast@gmail.com.
Yep. That's everything.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Bleacher Report app is your destination for sports. Right now, the NBA's heating up, March Madness is here, and MLB is almost back. Every day there's a new headline, a new highlight, a new moment you've got to see for yourself. That's why I stay locked in with the Bleacher Report app. For me, it's about staying connected to my sports. I can follow the teams I care about, get real-time scores, breaking news, and highlights all in one place. Download the Bleacher Report app today so you never miss a moment.